That's what you do. You buy these clothes that cost money and make a difference in it. But we never do that.
Never complains, gets up, gets on, with a smile on his face.
You just want you to sit in your chair and go, hip hip hooray, to the Western press and the Western narrative, regurgitating the same old, same old, same old, every single day, without the sun. If you haven't seen it before, please watch the first two episodes, the second series.
We are on the site of the castle.
And it was the first time the Beatles had really stopped being semi-professional almost.
Look at that.
Absolutely fascinating.
Hey everyone, sorry I'm late. I was starting at 8 o'clock and I pressed the wrong button and everything went off. It's just my day, you know, it's just been my day. Goes up to the doctors and they had the wrong day. It's tomorrow. So I've got to go back tomorrow. That's my day. My day. Incredible. And anyway, I just want to thank Gap Painting Services, the wonderful Gap Painting Services, for sponsoring the Frank Carlyle show. Honestly, they're fully timed, serve lads, they're fully insured, they do a first class job. If you're at NHS working, get them in. Don't struggle like I did once. Just don't struggle. Get them in. And if you're an elderly person, please get them in. Please get them in. Don't struggle bending down, painting ceilings, painting walls, what kinds of wallpaper. Get these lads in. Honestly, the first class. And if you're an NHS worker, as I mentioned, and if you're an elderly person, you get a special discount. Get them in. Don't struggle. Please don't struggle. And even if you're not one of them, and you're an ordinary lad, girl, couple, whatever, you get, honestly, they're dead reasonable. They're very reasonable. Get them in. Don't struggle like I've struggled in the past. Broken neck and everything. Don't do it. Take notice of what I'm saying. Please don't struggle. Now, it's good to be back, actually, because, you know, the 15th of April, it really affects me. It really affects me. So I'm back to normal now. Back tonight, back to the history show with me great, wonderful friend. You know, it's easy enough saying about friends, isn't it? You know, yeah, I've got a good friend, but this fella is special to me. Always has been. Just a lovely man. And his lovely wife, Lainey, they've been brilliant to me, the pair of them. And that's what you call friends. And I had a smashing message today of a lady who was concerned about my health. And Erin, her husband, by the way, and she said, we'll come over and we'll have a cup of tea. I'll take you out for a cup of tea and a cake. And I went, that'll do me. So, it's just wonderful stuff to have great friends, especially after yesterday, the 15th of April. We look for Christmases, don't we? Easter this week. We look for that. We look for birthdays. We look for anniversaries, and certain things. But the 15th of April, I just won't go on about it now because it's very emotional stuff for me. Very emotional. I might do a show on it one day if I'm brave enough, just do a special show about the 15th of April. What it means to the city of Liverpool. What it means to be lambasted by a certain newspaper. To demeanour us, a great city like ours, demean us, then the cover up. Who'd ever believe that who'd ever believe that a city, like such a great city as ours, could be led by a government that covered up the truth? Think about that. Think about that. Then we were exonerated. We were exonerated, and they still have a go at us. Certain fans, always the victim. Hate them. I hate them when they come out with them. But anyway, I'm here tonight with my great friend Anthony Brown. Great artist. Just one hell of a nice fellow. And there he is, this great man. Hey, Andy.
Oh, thank you, Frank. And what a poignant welcome. And I certainly share your sentiments about yesterday, and I'm sure there's millions of people that do. Certainly hundreds of thousands of Scousers that do.
Well, you had a cousin, Gary, didn't you?
Yes, we did. And my youngest cousin Gary, we lost sadly on the day. My elder cousin Paul was there and actually held him in his arms. And I'll be with you the night you do that show. Because yes, it is. It's wounds that never heal.
Yeah.
And what made it harder was obviously the lies and deceit for years and years.
And there's still no justice.
Yes.
Still no justice.
Yeah.
97 lives. Think about that. 97. Unlawfully killed. The coroner came out and said, unlawfully killed.
Yeah.
And there's nothing. But I will do a show on that. And I'll try and get some guests too, like yourself, obviously. And we'll talk about it because it should never be forgotten. It should never, ever, ever be forgotten. And I will I'll organise a show and try and get some other people, other guests in and talk about it. Talk about the trauma that it caused us. Liverpool Football Club, the fans, the city, every citizen of Liverpool, because I just couldn't make out why. I always remember in an interview by the fellow who wrote the story about, the ordinary. I don't like mentioning the paper's name, what Mackenzie editor, the editor. So I'll just say Mackenzie's paper. And I always remember him giving an interview. He said, "I didn't write that headline. It was Mackenzie himself who wrote it." He said, "You can't do that. That's not the truth." So they spun his story. They spun his report. And then the headlines are the truth. We'll never forget that. Never forget that reporter.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll do that show, and we'll carry on with tonight's show. It should be fun.
Will be. You're driving.
Yeah. And Ezra says, yes, Frank and Anthony.
Evening all.
And Zarrell, Frankie.
Oh.
He says the two Ronnies live. The two Ronnies.
Hello from him and a hello from me.
And says Lynham's on. But he sends us arts anyway. He sends us arts. And Gary Rigby, hello Frank, good evening. Good evening, Gary. Thanks for joining us. And Darryl says, justice for the 97. And Gary says, great review you wrote on Facebook, Frank. Thank you. I couldn't move yesterday, I'm being honest. I couldn't move. I was sitting there, and I hardly post on Facebook anyway. I decided, I've got to say something. I have to say something. And that's what I just wrote. I wrote it the way I see it. The way I see it. And Darryl says, Anthony Brown equals legend.
Thanks, Darryl. That's
about. And Darryl says, the words you wrote on me and says, that's a passionate Scotsman there. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And I felt sick to the stomach when I saw by the T-shirts in Manchester. Yeah. That was shocking. This is what I mean about the way the whole of the country turned on Liverpool.
To use it as a weapon against the city.
Yeah, it was a big, massive weapon. But it even goes before then. You know, through history, which I'll be talking about in a moment, through history, nothing ever gets mentioned about Liverpool. Nothing. It's a little bit big, oh, there's Liverpool. I think that's it. That's it. You can even see in the weather, the weather forecast, when you have, the map of the UK.
Yeah.
Right, so it never has Liverpool.
No.
It's always got Manchester.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've noticed it, and more it winds me up, Frank.
Exactly. And Callum says, JFT 97, big art, lest we forget. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Callum, lad, absolutely. They didn't care, Frank. They still don't, says Gary. Gary, no, they don't. That's why I'm going to have, a special show. And to get everything out. to get everything out of our system. But it'll always be there for us. It'll always be there for us. And Zell says, all round the fields of Anfield. Yes, I like that. I'm not English. I'm Scouse. I love that saying.
Yeah.
Not English, Scouse.
Yeah.
And Gary. Good evening, Anthony.
Good evening, Gary. Hope you're well. Good evening, one and all.
And Daryl says, I'll do the Hillsborough show. Yeah, definitely, Daryl. I'll have you on. Because, you must have been a very young man, young boy. And Callum says, Frantony. How about that? Frantony. That's great.
Yeah.
That's smashing there.
A bit like Kraftwerk.
Yeah.
But not a musical.
Oh, Callum. And Gary says the prejudice is shocking, even down to the Wirral, even to the Wirral getting the postcode, the CH postcodes, as they said, the Liverpool postcode brought the house prices down. That's absolutely true, that, and it's the same in Southport as well. What they were saying, they wanted, I think, Greater Manchester or somewhere like that. I forget now. They just didn't want to be associated with Merseyside. I do know that for a fact.
What the absolute.
And Daryl says, I was 8, Frank. But really, you can't say, well, you could, now because you learn so much. But I'd like people like Anthony, who experienced the thing. Lovely Karen. I told you, I was talking to you today, wasn't I?
Yeah.
And I said I got a lovely message off a lovely girl.
Yeah.
And that's the girl.
That was Karen. Oh. Hi,
I
Karen.
told Francine as well. Francine phoned me up.
Yeah.
And I told her that I got a lovely message off that lovely woman. And her husband, man. I know the pair of them.
Yeah.
I know the pair of them.
Wonderful. And that's what
she's going to take the outfit tea and cake.
There you go.
Can't be bad, Cal. Look at him, Daryl saying anti-Frank. Listen, what I want to talk about, Gary says, the Wirral is basically a suburb. Most people there shop, work, and socialise in Liverpool. Hypocrites. Mostly work. They mostly work here. And when they come through the tunnel and over on the ferry, and then they go back. And, they say, I don't like that Liverpool. Yet, they make their living in Liverpool. This is what I can't make out. That's the way it is.
It is. Unfortunately, it is the way it is. And then if you break it down into areas, and it's like, behave yourself. We're all Liverpoolians. We're all Merseysiders. We're all,
Yeah. Karen says, oh yes, get your kicks belt at the red. I'll give you something as well when you come over, Karen. I'll give you one of these newspapers. One of these newspapers that I had made, printed. I wonder if you can't see it, can you? But anyway, it's a cracking thing. It's all about Liverpool, but it's all full of history. Hang on, let's see if I can. No, you can't see it. But anyway, it's all about. It's a newspaper. It's a form of a newspaper, and it's all about there's Prince Rupert, and the Liverpool News. It's called, and it's about Prince Rupert taking the castle when he came, when he came during the Civil War. It's about Liverpool as well, when it was when King John gave us his Royal Theatre. So I'll be doing that. I'll be doing that too as well. But I'll give you the full newspaper when you come over, Carol. Honestly, as a little present from me for you and Steve. For you and Steve. And she says, "Oh my God, thank you, Frank. I will treasure that newspaper. You'll enjoy it, honestly. I'm not just. I'm going to read a few excerpts out of it tonight, for the show. So that's what I'll be doing." And someone asked me, about the, the statues. Like, remember the statue that used to be in Church Street, and it was a horse being pulled back, and it was moved down to the pierhead somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, someone asked me, he said, "Who's on that? Who is the sculptor?" And I went like that. I said, "And what's it called?" He said, "What's it called?" I said, "Well, what it's called is, excuse me. What it's called is called Great Escape. And the Great Escape was Edward Cronshaw. A fellow named Edward Cronshaw was the sculptor. And people think that it had something to do with the Grand National. Something to do with it because it's a horse, obviously. And I would have thought that too. But this Edward Cronshaw, he designed it. And it's just called the Great Escape because it's moving away from, the fella who's got hold of it. And it's done in the form of rope. I think it's absolutely fantastic. A very unusual one. A very unusual one. And the other one is a case history. And a case history, you've got, the cases up by Rodney, well, it is in not Rodney Street, Hope Street.
On Hope Street, yeah.
Yeah. And that was by a fella named John King in 1998, I think. 1998. And again, look, there's the cases. Sorry, there's the Great Escape by Cronshaw. Isn't that brilliant? I love that.
Yeah. The sadness really was when they took it out of full public view, really, wasn't it? To kind of, I know where it is, but it's kind of hidden away from most people.
Yes. Yes.
It's just the back of the old, the police station that was.
Well, I actually, on one of my DVDs, I remember filming that. The thing. And I was down there, by the way. It was down there.
Yeah.
But when the case history was remarkable. And there it is.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant piece of. I always thought, when I first seen it, I thought that it was the likes of students coming and going. Because it's around, like, the universities, especially there, that's Lippe.
Yeah.
That's Lippe there. So I thought, it's like students, coming and going. And again, a very clever, very, very clever piece of sculpture, I think. And obviously, it's had the Beatles, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, George Harrison, little tabs, little labels on them. But unfortunately, all these Beatleheads, if you know what I mean, the fans, they kept stealing them.
Yeah.
They kept stealing them. Which, let's be honest, you don't blame them. Coming here, they come from miles around, they come from other countries to visit Liverpool because of the Beatles.
Yeah.
And, go to the Beatle festivals. And, so they see Paul McCartney, and obviously.
With the Lipper. And you're right smack bang in an area which, the Beatles grew up in, Lennon's old art school, which is gone now. But
Yeah.
the pub where they all used to go, the old Crack, is still there.
Yeah, still there, the Crack, yeah. I remember me and Billy Butler up in Kensington. It was where Lennon and McCartney made like a first recording. No, was it Lennon? Was it McCartney as well? Remember the Quarrymen?
Yeah.
And he was a member of the Quarrymen, and it was like just an ordinary little terraced house in Kensington.
Yeah.
And that's where the first recording was. And I remember me and Billy Butler, Billy Butler gave a talk all about the Beatles and whatever. I gave a talk about whatever, the history of, not of the Beatles, but Kensington. So anyway, that's what I did. And there was crowds there. There's lots of Americans. And his sister Julia was there. So anyway, we all went back to the Crack, funny enough. And there was something laid on for us. And I said to Julia, I said, it was a great picture of John. A cracking picture. What she took, actually. I said, give us that. And you know what she said to her? Yeah, £5. I said, oh, sod off. She was going to charge me a £5. I thought, no, you're all right.
Yeah.
You're all right. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
It's the way it is.
She did the thing at that time. I remember you doing it. Not that I was there with you, but when you did it, they released a replica, a single based on the tracks that they recorded, which is wonderful. I got a copy, little 7-inch single, with the because they did a couple of versions of Buddy Holly stuff. That'll Be the Day, stuff like that. That's they recorded there in that studio. Yeah.
Well, that's it. You'd never think, would you, that a little terraced house?
No.
And that was the first recording. With the, I forget his name. And he was known, actually.
Yeah.
He was a recording there. And obviously, Lennon must have been McCartney and Harrison as well.
Yeah.
Must have been, because Harrison was there before McCartney, wasn't
he? Yeah. Wish we had been Jerrican, but I think Mr. Phillips was the guy who owned it, and it was that he owned a 2-track, the old cassette, not cassette, sorry, the old reel-to-reel. And I think another couple of Liverpool legends had recorded there, so it got a bit of a name. And then the Beatles went there, yeah. The
Beatles, yeah. But it just shows you, doesn't it? Like the history of the Beatles and many other things, to be honest.
Yeah.
Many other things. Do you know what? I'm going to read out some things, if you don't mind. In the second half, I'm going to go on to this. I'll just show you it. I'm going to go on to that and talk about all the some of the things, because someone asked me a few weeks ago. They said, well, that thing behind you, I forget who it was. He said, will you do something on that? I said, yeah. So we'll have that up, big picture, and we'll go around where significant little historical things happened. So we'll be doing that. a bit later on, you know, after the break, that is.
Yeah.
Just see what the lads are saying. And Gary says, not far from the Baltic pub now. That's the horse, you know, the
Yeah,
greatest.
that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Religion says, were you okay last night, Frank? I always, I always try to stay on my own. And, well, I'm always on my own, but you know, especially on the fifth, I couldn't have done it last night. You know, the ordinary football show, I couldn't have done it really. And Christopher Ellis, hi Frank and Anthony and everyone, like and subscribe, please. Oh, thank you.
Great.
I never ever say that. I'm going to see like other pods, you know, they say before we start, press the like and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed.
Yeah.
Everyone says that except me. Don't know why, like, but the likes of Christopher,
Yeah.
you know,
Brilliant.
and Lynn Ellis. Evening, Frank and Anthony.
Oh,
Hope you are both well. Thank you, Lynn.
thank you, Lynn. Hope you are too.
And Gary says, the blue plaque is still over the door in Kensington. Oh,
Brilliant.
right, okay. Okay. I when I went, I had to go the Aussie, didn't I? A month or so ago. Wasn't even a month or so ago. But anyway, I went up there. And someone was texting me. And I was answering. You know, so I'm in the taxi, got my head down on the phone, you know. So anyway, I'm texting back. And then when I stopped, where I was, I went, and I looked around, I went, is this Kensington? And the taxi driver said, yeah. Unrecognisable. Unrecognisable. And Edward says, my mum used to listen to Billy and Wally, Hold Your Plums. They did events in Pontons twice a year yeah, they did. My granddad and mum used to love it.
Yeah.
I think everybody loved it. And I always remember the question, you must remember this. And the question was to like one of the people, they used to phone in to Hold Your Plums. And questions were asked. And Billy said to this particular person, what was the name of the ship? Mutiny on the Bounty. What was the name of the ship? Mutiny on the Bounty. And I think it was a lady, you know. She couldn't get it. She couldn't get it. Give me a clue, Billy. Billy, give me a clue. Oh, it was hilarious. That always resonates.
Magic listening. That just pure genius. Fantastic. I remember a lady who was struggling and with an actor. They were trying to guess the name of an actor. And Billy was saying to her, he was known as the Duke. And the lady said, will you give us another clue? And Billy, in his voice, said, the hell I will. You know, she said, oh, go ahead, you give everyone else a clue. And it's like, oh my God, lady.
Oh, yeah.
Go up and have a cup of tea and come back. But just brilliant. I was howling with all that.
Well, you know, the likes of Wally Scott, he's no longer with us now, Wally, is he?
No, sadly he's not, no.
And you just hear him laughing in the background.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
You just hear him laughing in the background. Tony, even Frankie, and there's the pints. And hello, Anthony. Pints for me and Scotch for you.
Tony, thank you. We're walking home, Frank. Not driving with that.
And Gary says, remember Edward's record shop in Kenny? got loads of records from there. I don't like Kenny wasn't my area, to be honest. Kenny wasn't my area, to be honest. It was only very later that I started to get to know about Kensington through history, really. That's all, Gary. And Ezra says, Gary, I used to go to 3 Beats in town to get my music tapes. I think we went to different places, didn't we?
There's so many places, yeah. So many places that did music. I used to love going to Cranes.
Yeah.
Which is oh wow, it's a historic building in its own right.
Yeah.
Now the Epstein Theatre, but when I was a kid, you used to go there and for £3 you pick up an album or whatever, or for less. And then when I started to learn to play music, being music, they used to sell all the sheet music and everything. So I was there for hours, as did Rushworth's, of course.
I used to go to Hessie's.
Yeah.
Frank Hessie's.
Yeah.
And, but, you know, just before I say about Hessie's, you mentioned about, you know, the building where you used to go. And it was, you know, it's a lovely building where the Epstein is. And do you know who built that? Who designed it? And it's surprising, actually, because you just think about this fellow and not the middle of town, but, you know, around the pier head and that. And the fellow who designed that particular building, right, Rushton's, was W. Aubrey Thomas, who actually designed the Lager building.
Wow.
You would never think that, would you?
You wouldn't, but what a quiz stopper that would be.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I remember the history of it, because the store downstairs we call Cranes was attached to the theatre, wasn't it? And it was a case of selling organs and pianos and all that kind of stuff there. And the theatre, was that not set up as a kind of a showcase play? This is how that instrument sounds or whatever. I love the theatre. I always have that. And I love the fact that it's not massive. It's big enough for a wonderful, wonderful gig. I've seen some fantastic gigs there. Music, acoustics are fantastic.
I'll tell you another thing that brings back memories of, like every Saturday. I mean, when we were teenagers, when everyone was into music and whatever, it was going into Nems in Charlotte Street. Because you had the little booths and you just see everyone like this, don't you, in the different booths, you know, just especially girls. You know what I mean?
I missed that. But
yeah, of course, we all miss it. Loads of things.
Well, Beaver's electrical setup, I think, next door to that. So Mr. Frank Hessie's was my favourite. And I would, as a kid, I could only reach the windowsill. The windowsill was about there. So I'd stretch up and put my head on. And I could just about make out people coming in, taking guitars off the wall and all this, you know, life in the store. Never had the bottle to walk in there. And then it was my elder cousin, Peter, who was a drummer, said, come on, we'll go in. And those 2 tiny little tots went in. Oh, there we go. Look at that.
That's brilliant.
Wow.
What do you think of that? I love that church. Look at it. And hardly anything, well, except for the bunnies, which is on the left, extreme left there. But hardly anything's ever changed, Church Street.
No.
When you look down, because There's like the old Marks and Spencers, which was the Compton Hotel.
Yeah.
And you know the Compton Hotel, believe it or not, the Compton Hotel, and people used to say, or, really thought, not talking about like Jimmy down the road or whatever. What it was that the Compton Hotel, which was the old Marks and Sparks,
Yeah.
was the very first hotel with like what you call a supermarket inside. The very first. And someone said, no, it was in Paris. I said, no, it wasn't in Paris. I said, we had it first. We had it. It opened 6 months before the one in Paris. So this was the very first building to have a hotel and a supermarket, more or less a supermarket, a department store, put it that way. Not a supermarket, but a department store inside the hotel. A fellow by the name of Haig did it, he designed it because a friend of his who owns a little shop on that site, it burnt down. And he said, can you, do me a little shop? And he said, yeah, okay. And he said, that's not a little shop, when he showed him the design. He said, I'll just build it, be all right. And he built that massive building. That's not a little shop, he said. He only wanted a little shop.
You know what? I'd love to. I would love to see that back as a hotel. But that was one of the first buildings that you and I talked about like 20 odd years ago when I mentioned to you, me and Laney mentioned to you, and you told us then, when you're walking along the street, always look up.
Yeah, because it's totally different.
The history is above, for you or whatever,
Yeah. And look at there's Nems, I mentioned Nems and Charlotte Street, going in, and there it is, there, haven't we?
Oh, no. I so remember photos of it and my mum talking about it and everything. When I started to buy records and stuff, it was Woolworths and places like that and Cranes.
Yeah, Cranes, yeah. Frank Carlyle's.
Yeah.
There used to be one in Manchester Street, by the Mersey Tunnel there. I forget the name.
Was that not the original one that sold pianos and things?
Yeah. But they were actually filming there, and I'll tell you what they were filming. We were down there, as little mad kids, and we were down there. They were filming Hard Day's Night. They were actually filming, and they were there, and the Beatles were there, and we all got chased because they had like what you call extras who were looking in the window, like this, and we were down there.
Yeah.
We got chased. Go on, go get your face washed or something. And we were chased. Manchester Street. Was that Essie's? Was it Essie's?
Just for now.
I forget the name of it. Unfortunately. I'm going to read something out of this thing here. I think it's great, I really do. If you can see it, can't see it. Yeah, look, it's like, it'd be better than that. Like, at the top of that page, it says, the famine pushes up the city's population by nearly 40%.
Yeah.
40% it says on this. And it says it's absolutely incredible.
Flee their own.
It gives you the story about it. It gives you the story there. And I think, I don't think I'll know that Karen will be absolutely made up with this.
Yeah.
Absolutely made up. And there's a well, a print, obviously, of, oh, you can't see it, but this thing here,
Yeah.
you can't see it, unfortunately.
And
It's
see the
the
on
it's
it.
a print of the railway system up in
Oh,
Edgehill. So there's smashing prints. There's
I
really,
think you should delve in and read one of them. I first saw them when I nicked a couple off you when we met you, and we were going to do your portrait.
yeah,
And I put you right on the spot and said, "Well, there's this and this and this." And you said, "Well, I haven't got." You did not have access at that time to all of your stuff, your bits and
no,
pieces and stuff, but you came back and you brought a couple of them.
yes, yeah, it did, because that,
And that,
as I said, I couldn't bring anything down. I only had a couple of photographs, didn't I?
yeah,
And that was about it, because and I got them months and months later back. All my photographs from when I was a chat from when I was a baby.
yeah,
A little baby in arms, and
to
when I
save
made my first
one.
communion, things like that. I
Yeah.
got them all back.
What happened? Happened in for a beautiful way, because you were marked as a history man, which you, of course, still are.
That's why I brought it down, to be honest. Can I just read? This is the likes of what's in this paper, little snippets and
Yeah.
whatever. I wonder if this. Yeah, that's what's in here. That's
Wow.
what's in here. Isn't that brilliant?
Jason, you're
Yeah,
brilliant.
Jason, look at him. That's a cracker.
Virgin
That's
on
an absolute.
Genius.
And just imagine, Anthony, the very first fatality of the railway
Yeah.
was William Huskisson, the MP.
Absolutely.
When the rocket ran over him. It
Yeah.
ran over him, severed his leg, and he bled to death, unfortunately.
Yeah.
William Huskisson. There was mausoleums down in St James's Cemetery.
That's a
But
beautiful piece of work in itself.
it is, it is. And the fella who designed that mausoleum is one of my favourite architects, and that was John Foster Jr. Now, John Foster Jr. didn't only build the two churches, one on Rodney Street, St Andrews, but also St Luke's, the bombed out church. You see, that's what he designed and built. But he also designed and built that mausoleum for Huskisson.
Yeah.
And he also designed and built, Gambia Terrace.
Yeah.
He,
Wow.
he designed that as well. Yeah,
That
look,
itself is beautiful. That's just.
isn't it brilliant, that?
You can imagine the regard that Mr. Huskisson must have been held in by everyone at that
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. I'll just read you. How about this? From the newspaper. Listen to this. It's just got a little headline. It's only one, a little tidbit here. Like a little posting. You know what you normally get on newspapers, and it's got. I can't hardly bloody see it. Let's see if these glasses are any better. It's terrible, isn't it? No, they won't be any better. Let's see if these will be any better. These are like binoculars when I put these bloody things on. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, well better. And it says the 15th of February, 1788, 2 hanged.
Oh,
Patrick Bourne and John Sylvester Dowling were hanged in front of the jail at Liverpool before 20,000 spectators.
wow.
They had been convicted of breaking into the house of Mrs. Graham of Liverpool.
Wow.
Imagine that, getting hanged for breaking into a house.
Wow.
It's nuts, isn't it? Really?
I remember you mentioning on the pod one time that there was a gallows on London Road towards
Yeah.
London.
Do you know where the Roy Castle thing is?
Yeah.
You know that hospital. That's where it was, the gibbet. But you could see right up. And what they used to do, they used to have this gibbet there. And when they hanged somebody, this is horrible, this, they used to leave them there for 6 weeks as a
Wow.
deterrent because people used to look and like when they were just swinging there, like just being hanged. You had the likes of crows, landing and poking their eyes out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a deterrent
Yeah.
for
Wow.
people not to do anything naughty. But the likes of those two lads who just burgled a house were caught, arrested, convicted, and hanged. That's the way it was back in the day. Back in the day. And Gary says Hesse's was on Stanley Street. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a few Hesse's actually. Lee Brady, all right. Hello, Frank and Anthony. How are you both? All the better for you.
Thanks, Lee.
Very much, Lee. Thank you.
Hope you are too.
And Karen, well done, Jason. Rising to the occasion. Great to see this photo. Yeah, see. And Carol says, John Foster Jr., what a talented and creative genius he was. Carol,
Yes.
he was one of my favourites. And he built one of the greatest custom houses. The fifth custom house, that is. And it was built in 1828. 1828. It was the same year. Do you know where, the Anglican Cathedral, Anthony?
Yeah.
Do you know that big? They reckon it's, I reckon as well, and it's not just me saying it. They reckon it's the finest miniature Greek Doric temple in the entire world, which is, what you see as you're just going up to enter
Yeah.
the Anglican Cathedral. It's there. It's a fantastic, and that was hidden, for years. All them railings were overgrown and things were overgrown and everything. And people used to miss it. People used to miss it, because of the overgrown. They used to just go into the cathedral.
Yeah.
And they used to miss it. But he built that as well. Besides, as I said, Uskerson's little thing, and also Gambia Terrace. He was an incredible man, but he also designed them. Well, that was built in 1828, the Greek Doric temple, the miniature. But he also designed 1828. It opened the doors in 1828. The custom house. The custom house.
That is just.
It's Case Jason, isn't he? get rid of them. And that's the custom. Now, I've always said, you've heard me, that opened its doors in 1828, right? 1828, think about it. And I always said that just imagine if that was still there today. It's bigger than St. George's Hall, more columns than St. George's Hall, and a lighter stone, just same light stone as St. George's Hall. Could you imagine that there today? You know, on Shabbat Park.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that?
Yes.
An incredible
Yes.
building.
It's just like dreamland. It's just
Yeah.
beautiful. Any country in the world would be honoured to have that.
And you know what? I've always said it was corruption that pulled that down, because it got an incendiary went in that dome, you know, the dome at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is again. That's the size of it. Look at the size of that. Look at the size of that, Anthony. And an incendiary went through the top and down. Now, it wasn't a bomb, if you know what I mean, as such. It was an incendiary, and it just set fire. It gutted 2/3 of it, but that's all it was, gutted. And preservationists then were saying, whatever you do, don't pull it down. And they're saying, no, we're pulling it down. And I'll tell you for why they pulled it down. Which sickens me, because that should have been still there today. And the Americans loved that, you know, because the Americans were here, weren't they, during the war? And they went like that, we'll have that. Because America were buying everything.
Yeah.
They were buying everything. Everything they were buying. They were buying castles in Scotland. They bought London Bridge.
Yeah.
And they said, we'll have that. Now, that particular thing there, you'd say, oh, God, blimey, it's a ruin there. But they was demolishing that picture at the time. They were demolishing it, if you know what I mean. Yeah. The only thing was that the dome was gone. I've got pictures of it somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, after it was, after the fire was out and everything. But it wasn't like that. You still had roofs and everything on it. But it wasn't like that, you know, where you see brick. That was being, unfortunately, it was being demolished at the time. What you've got just above it, another fantastic building that it was criminal vandalism, in my opinion. And that's the Sailors' Home.
Yeah.
John Cunningham's Sailors' Home. 1841 that opened. And to knock it down in 1974, it was knocked down. And to pull it down then, you know, people weren't thinking at the time. People weren't thinking, oh, yeah, pull it down. And that old stud that it made, you know, when they pulled it down, until Liverpool 1 came about. Nothing was built on it. But what got me was that building pulled down, Anthony. And no one had the thoughts of how many people, how many armed forces. There it is. Look at it. How beautiful is that?
It is absolutely beautiful. And inside is just magnificent.
Oh, but my point is, Anthony, is this. People going in and out of that particular, the big portals going into it during wars.
Yeah.
You know, like the Crimean War, soldiers and sailors are never returning. Then all the other wars after that. All the other wars after that. Right up to the likes of the Suez Canal in the 50s. When you think that, you know, I just can't believe that no one thought about, we can't pull this down. It's got too many memories. Too many memories. And there it is. Look how beautiful that is.
Yeah.
Look how beautiful. And you know where you see the balustrades there,
Yeah.
they're in Port Merion now. Because Port Merion, if you think about it, that's where the prisoner was made. You know, that little village. So when they knew that this was going down, Anthony, they asked for all these railings and such, and that's what's around that particular village today.
Wow.
It's horrible. It's horrible. And on that note, we'll have a little break, and we'll come back to more history. Is that okay?
Get the map out.
Get the map out.
This is the Cathedral of Christ the King, and it seems like a second home, along with the Anglican Cathedral. But every time I come here, we seem to learn a lot more history, and none more so than a person that was actually born on this site. People sometimes term loosely individuals as heroes. So what does an individual have to do to become such a hero? Let's go back in time and picture this scene. Thunder and lightning. A young girl running through the streets of Liverpool, heavily pregnant, banging on the warehouse door right here. The door opened. The authorities didn't realise that this girl was heavily pregnant. She collapsed, and unfortunately she died. But she was given birth at the same time. And when she gave birth, the authorities panicked because the lady died. They thought that the child had died as well, so they rushed him over to the chapel where they baptised him, because obviously they thought that he was going to die. And they baptised him John, after the Baptist. And they gave him the old Anglo-Saxon word, kirk, meaning church. So this young boy became John Kirk. And John Kirk, his birth was actually the catalyst for Charles Dickens's Oliver Twist, because Oliver Twist, he was born in a workhouse to a mother who died, and Charles Dickens read this particular report, and as I said, it put the seed in his head. And who was Oliver Twist's benefactor? It was none other than Mr. Brownlow, his paternal grandfather, hence Brownlow Hill Workhouse. But what happened to John Kirk? John Kirk escaped certain death because workhouses at that time were an absolutely dreadful place to be placed in. Because the only time that you ever came out to freedom was feet first, because you were tied to the workhouse for the rest of your natural life. John Kirk escaped the workhouse, and what an incredible life story he had. What happened to Kirk was an extraordinary true story. He somehow got to Lincoln. No one knows how he got to Lincoln, by the way. He just all of a sudden happened to turn up there, and he joined the army. Now, don't forget, in those days, it was hand to mouth. And that ran him out. You had to do something. And he was just a young boy, a young man. And he joined the Lincolnshire Regiment. He became a drummer boy. Then he progressed to being a bugler. And from there, obviously, a rifleman. He was sent over to India, and it was the Raj, belonging to the British Empire. And during the 1857 Indian uprising, what he did, he volunteered along with 2 sergeants to go and rescue the captain of the regiment, the captain's wife, children, servants. So he volunteered along with the 2 sergeants and went, and he actually fought hand-to-hand combat 2,000 Punjabis, just these few men. And he actually got the captain, his wife, children, servants to safety. And he was awarded the Victoria Cross along with the 2 sergeants. But he never got it right away. He had to wait a further 3.5 years until November 1860. And if you could imagine, in that time, this man was suffering from a debilitating disease called narcolepsy. He was also suffering from rheumatoid arthritis. So this man was in pain anyway. In November 1860, he was court-martialed just prior to receiving his Victoria Cross. They couldn't execute him because any menial offence, if you're court-martialed, you were executed. As an example for the army. But unfortunately for the army, they couldn't execute him because in a few days' time he was actually going to receive his Victoria Cross off the Queen herself, Victoria. He stood for 12 solid hours, 48 hours after being punished because they had to punish him. And they gave him 50 lashes. And he stood there waiting for his Victoria Cross off the Queen. She knew nothing at all about the punishment. All she knew that she was going to present this brave man. She came, she gave him the Victoria Cross, congratulated him. She walked away. After she disappeared, he was marched by 2 officers through the portals. This is Buckingham Palace, where he was stripped of his uniform, stripped of his medal, dishonourably discharged, and he was left destitute. Less than 2 minutes after receiving his Victoria Cross, he made his way back to Liverpool. Now, why he made his way back to Liverpool is this. He never, ever, ever forgot his mother. He always wanted to know what his proper name was. So he made his way back to his spiritual home, which was Brownlow Hill Workhouse. He got back, finally got back. Banged on the door like his mother did. Unfortunately, he was in such pain because of his 50 lashes, still suffering from rheumatoid arthritis. He was brought through, readmitted, brought through the dormitories, where he lay down on his bed and died. And that's the extraordinary story of Liverpool's first recipient of the Victoria Cross. Now, what I'm going to say now is that allegedly he was drunk on parade. However, if we look at it more closely, with that debilitating disease called narcolepsy, where you slur your speech and you stagger, he could have easily have been suffering then and not being drunk on parade. But unfortunately, he was court-martialed for it.
I'm just checking.
That always brings me to close to tears. That story. What a truly remarkable gentleman.
Yeah,
What courage, what spirit, and wow, every odds set up against him. But
do you know
that's
what?
the first time I've seen an image of his grave. Um, I've heard you tell the story, and I'm in raptures every time you do it. But Anfield Cemetery,
Yeah,
wow,
I'm awfully sorry.
yeah, yeah.
I've just finished it.
What a man, and what an inspiration for Mr. Dickens.
Oh yeah, yeah. See, Dickens always had a seed to write um, his novels. There's always something. It's like we were talking about today, Jimmy and Alan. You know, Jimmy McGovern and Alan
Yeah,
Blaisdell, where they found their material in the most unlikely places.
yeah,
Well, the likes of Dickens, he found his niche, if you like, for his characters, real life characters, by the way,
yeah,
in prisons,
yeah,
workhouses, hospitals, and little bridewells
yeah,
when he used to go around, you know.
yeah,
So, it's just great to think that these people got their inspiration from real life uh,
real.
incidents.
Yeah, I love that word, and I love the way you use it to describe them as well. And I think that's why we, the great public and the fans, aspire and connect with these geniuses,
Oh,
with
yeah,
Dickens, with Jimmy McGovern, with Alan Blaisdell, is because they write about real things, not
yeah, yeah. It's,
fictionalized version of
well,
heightened.
it's so easy, isn't it, really? You know, I'm not getting away from any fiction. I'm really not. By these fiction writers, which are great. Some of them are great. But when you get the likes of Dickens and Shakespeare, these two unbelievable men writing about what was happening at the time, what was happening.
Yeah,
Shakespeare just didn't go like that. I think I'll write. I'll tell you what. I think I'll write about certain things. He was writing about the country, what
yeah,
was going on in the
yeah,
country. He really was. You know, people say like Hamlet, for example,
yeah,
like a foreign thing, so that people wouldn't, you know, in England, wouldn't go, hang on a minute, you can't be saying things like that about the country because he could have been brought up for sedition. So he used to write like Hamlet, which was based
yeah,
in Denmark, where someone says there is something rotten in the state of Denmark. What he was actually saying was there is something rotten in the state of England
yeah,
at the time because of what was going on.
yeah,
And he was always having a look at, the persecution of people and people uh, like the Catholics during the Reformation. He said, well, what are they doing? Because, if you were a certain denomination rather than a protester against Rome, you were punished severely. And that meant that you could be put to death
yeah,
if you were seen at a mass. These priests who used to hide in these homes, and people used to go to, practice their faith. You could be put to death, and you were heavily fined. And also, if you had offspring, if they weren't sent to certain schools rather than your faith school, they would never ever go to university. They would never go to university. And that's the way it was. Even women couldn't go to university. And it was shocking. I'm not just saying about them, but this is what he was writing about Shakespeare. All the great writers.
Yeah.
Wonderful writers. Even the likes of William Blake. Yeah. William Blake was writing about child. We go on about the abused children of today, and the people who are abusing them. And he used to write about them.
Yeah.
William Blake, one of my favourite poets. And he was actually brought up for sedition because he wrote a poem called London. Yeah. He wrote a poem called London. I wander through each chartered street now where the chartered Thames does flow. And every face of mark of weak, and every man I meet, marks of weakness, marks of woe. Because what he was saying, people are just walking around like, because they were the underprivileged, they were the vulnerable. And he goes on to say, and as the hapless soldier sighs, as blood runs down palace walls, as the blackening church appalls. So he has a go at the church. The church just stands back while everything is happening. While these are, these like young men are sent out to wars because of as the blood runs down palace walls. So he blames the state, besides the government, but also whoever's on the throne at the time. So he was brought up for sedition, treachery. He got away with it, luckily enough. But that's the way he was. Go on, sorry.
They did try to box him off as insane and lunatic, and don't listen to this man, and he's, what establishment does, what it did before him and what it's done since him. It's the old, the old defense mechanism of establishment and the script. If you go against the script, then...
But it's just like today. If you go against the script, if you go against the narrative, and this is what it's been going on for centuries. Centuries it's been going on. The likes of John Keats, what a great poet he was.
Yeah.
What a great poet. Do you know, on the 11th of May, 1812, Sir Spencer Perceval was assassinated. Assassinated. Now, Sir Spencer Perceval was a Liverpool man. And the fella who shot him, assassinated him, he was the Prime Minister, was another Liverpool man from Duke Street, John Bellingham. Now, the point is, the likes of Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge and these other great poets rarely thought that it was the first shot of the revolution. They thought it was a revolution. This is it, This is like the French Revolution that happened just a few years before.
Yeah.
So they really thought that this is it, the first shot of the revolution. And they were made up. They were made up. more or less saying, well, they were not more or less saying, but was saying, it's about time. It's about time. But it was quelled because they got Bellingham. He was arrested. He was actually jumped on by Gascoigne, and God blimey. I know, a Liverpool, a great Liverpool man as well. He was jumped on by him, by those two, and arrested. And that day, on the 11th, he was arrested, he was tried and convicted and hanged on the 18th of May. The 18th of May. And there he is. Look at that. Great.
Wow.
Incredible. Absolutely amazing. And he was hanged. So he was hanged. He was arrested, tried, convicted, and hanged all within a week. And that was to quell any talk of a revolution.
Yeah. And to disperse any idea of
yeah, because people were cheering Bellingham. They were cheering him, when he was in jail, or and being tried.
The great irony is that Sir Spencer Perceval, who was a lawyer, wasn't he? He brought in and had passed laws where groups of people, what you call mobs, were allowed to gather in the streets, which they still kind of try and nail now. So you and I couldn't phone 20 mates up to say, I see on the corner by the Adelphi or whatever, then immediately shut down. But anarchy.
Well, that's it's, everything is when people talk about anarchy. I was looking at something today, and I couldn't believe it. And it was from America. And I was listening, and they showed you a film of this not a Liverpool policeman, I'm sorry, just an ordinary policeman, and he was talking to this fella who was like sitting down, this older man, and he was, he couldn't hardly hear. This must have been last summer, because it was a lovely day, and he's talking to him, and someone said, speak English to him. You're not going to believe what I'm going to say now. Honestly. Because he can't hardly hear. Speak English. And I'll try and get this, I can't get it up now, but I'll try and get this up. And it came up as that it's a hate crime to tell anyone to speak English. This is in England. A hate crime. I couldn't believe it. And this American was saying, how can this be? In England, saying that it's a hate crime to tell somebody, must have thought that he was a foreigner, to speak English.
Yeah. Wow.
How bad is that?
Wow.
How bad is that in this country, this English country? Not to speak, it's a hate crime if you tell anyone to speak English. If they can't speak English, can you speak English? Regarded as a hate crime. I couldn't believe it. I just shook my head and I went, that's unbelievable. And the copper said it. You heard him saying it. The cop, little British Bobby, with his uniform on, saying it's a hate crime to tell people to speak English. Lee Brady says, and nowadays it's the victim, that is, who's living in the house that gets jail time for fighting back against the burglar. Yep.
I know.
Legend says, when did the hanging stop? I think 1965, 66. The last two people to hang was in, yeah, I love this man, Jason. There you go. There you go, look at that. If you say speak English to someone, it's classed as a hate crime. That's what he's telling that man there. And if you look at the second picture to the right, to your right, when he says that, I've seen the actual footage of this. That fella in shorts, he looks and goes, you can see his face there as he just says it. And he looks and he walks and just shakes his head. So what's that telling? Fancy saying that to anybody, any great literature writer. Fancy saying that to the likes of Margaret Thatcher even. It's incredible what we've done to this country.
I've got a few things I would have said to Margaret Thatcher, but that's not one of them.
And as Karen Kariakou says, put the Manchester Bombers' brother in the gibbet. That will never happen, that. Unfortunately, Karen. Never happened in a million years. Oh, there's the red bird. And Lee says, do they ever open that building that's on your left as you walk into the cathedral? Lee, I used to bring people in there. I used to get permission. And I used to bring people in there. I don't know whether Karen Kariakou's been in with me. I'm not quite so sure, but I used to bring people. Honest, this is genuine, this. Right. My class, he said, hey Frank, can you get us in the little Doric temple? And I went, I'll have a go. So I phoned up, the council, and talking to this fella, I said, listen, I said, is there any, they got no chance. I said, oh no. I said, I've got a group of people, and they're all, there's a couple of geologists, architects, and it's just going on about all these people. I said, they're from the south of England. I said, I was telling them about, this little temple, the Greek Doric temple. I said, is there any chance? And he was like, well, hang on a sec. So anyway, he must have got hold of the supervisor. The supervisor came to, on the phone and said, what can I do for you, Frank? I said, I've got a group of people, very prominent people. I said, there's a couple of architects. I said, there's archaeologists. I said, people, they're coming up to Liverpool. And I even said, someone works for NASA. I said, even better, you know, to work for NASA. So anyway, I was very impressed, you know, and he went, yeah, okay, I'll open it. I said, when? He said, well, it'll have to be a weekend, it'll have to be a Saturday. So I said, okay. I said, can I get back to you? He said, yes, sure. So I went in the next day and I said, I can get it open, but it'll be on a Saturday. And they all went, yeah, no, we go there, Frank. So I said, okay. I said, but listen, whatever you do, don't open your mouths. He said, why? I said, and I told them. So they all went, okay. Okay, like that. So anyway, I got back to this fella and he said, okay. He said, how about? And it was like the following Saturday. I said, yeah. I said, that'll be great, thank you. So anyway, we were all up there, right? And there was two fellas, you know, in the uniform, pink cap.
Yeah.
You know, outside the door. So.
Yeah.
So anyway, I walked up to them and I said, listen, I said, I've got the group. I said, do you mind? He said, no. He said, just give us 5 minutes. He said, someone's inside there and just tidying it up a little, you know, brushing it. I said, okay. So he said, yeah, I can go and shout them now. So I waved like that. I wouldn't shout. I said, okay, come on. You know, like, how long are we waiting for, Frank? We've been waiting for ages. Oh, the sort of voice went out, oh, come on, are you having a laugh or what? Are these fellas opening the door or what? And that's me telling them, whatever you do, don't open your mouths. And I told them like who they're supposed to wear, who they wear, and the front down south. So anyway, but we all went in, and do you know what? Give the two fellas the G, they just laughed their heads off. He said, I thought they were all posh. And there's the inside of it.
Oh, wow.
That's aviation, that.
Oh, jeez.
And do you see the statue at the bottom there?
The angel. Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it was a fella by the name of Salvatini who did that. Pietro Salvatini. And I wanted that to go into, you know, the new ladies' hospital.
Yeah.
I wanted that to go in there. And English Heritage wouldn't allow it because it belongs now to the English Heritage. That was then, going back a few years ago. Isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah.
There it is.
Oh, what a beautiful piece.
And it's of Agnes Jones.
Oh,
I've always mentioned her.
Angels.
She gave her life.
Yes. Oh, I've never seen that before, Frank. That's fantastic.
It is, isn't it? Well,
Yeah.
they called her an angel, didn't they? They called her an angel, Agnes Jones, and she's on the, you know, the women's chapel in the cathedral. She's in the noble women's window.
Yeah.
Along with Kitty Wilkinson, by the way.
I knew she was there along with our other hero, heroine.
And yeah, Kitty.
Yeah. That is beautiful, stunning. That.
Well, do you know Pietro Salvatini?
Yeah.
Do you know what else he did? Shall I tell you? You're going to go away. And you've seen this with me. And he had you and Laney out. A little group of us. I think, I'll tell you who was with us. Connie, you know Connie Lush, Val. She was with us. And I pointed out, this is in Castle Street. and I pointed up to a frieze. You know, a frieze along the wall,
Yeah.
and it was showed you the maritime history, all in in mosaic, and he did that. And do you know what else he did? The clock of Brownlow Hill, the red tower, the
Yeah.
mosaic clock. That was old Liverpool University. Now it's the
Oh,
it's the I know. There it is. Jason's put it up for us.
Jason is just on it. Thanks, Jason.
Isn't that great?
That is absolutely great.
And you see that ship? Say it gives you every ship from the beginning of 1207 right up to when that was done. And that particular ship with the black and red funnels and
Yeah.
also sails, you see the steam coming out, don't you? The smoke.
Yeah.
That's the Great Eastern. That's
Wow.
the Great Eastern. Isambard Kingdom Brunel's Great Eastern, which was birthed in Liverpool, by the way.
Wow.
Birthed in Liverpool. Yeah, look, see the old ships. It began then. But you see the mosaic.
Yeah.
Isn't that fantastic?
It is amazing, Frank. Beautiful.
We love Jason, don't we?
Jason, I tell you what, I'm proud to be one of the trio. You, Jason, and I joined in.
And look at that. You see, that's the little Greek Doric temple I was talking about.
Yeah.
That John Foster Jr., designed. And to the left of it, you've got that white building?
Yeah.
Well, believe it or not, that was the home of the head gardener of the cemetery.
Wow.
It was huge. It was
Wow.
huge. And but anyway, what's there now today, as you know, is the cathedral.
Yeah.
The cathedral.
Yeah.
And I love showing when I'm up there, showing things. John Foster Jr.'s house, because he when he was building the likes of Gambia Terrace and that Greek Doric temple, but also Uskerson's memorial, and
Yeah.
laying out, the cemetery, because he lays out the cemetery too. And he built his house, and it's still there today, and it's beautiful.
Is it a private residence? Or
I don't know who lives there now. I really don't. I don't know whether I don't know whether it belongs to the cathedral or what. But it's this heavy stone, like a grey stone.
yeah.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful it is. Wow. And it should be open, because you can't hardly see it.
Should be open.
Because of the trees and things, plants. You can hardly see it, but I think really that it should be, I'm not saying opened up to the public, but open so that the public can see it.
Specific events. Wouldn't it be just majestic to see that? And if there was any fragments of his drawings or his work, rather like our hero William Roscoe, just to have them there in the house.
I'm just going to see what some of them are saying. with our lads are saying and girls. The Redbirds, soz I'm late, chaps. Been busy cleaning all that mank dirt off the league trophy, ready for the big verge to lift. Now back to our history lesson. Says the Redbirds. And Lee Brady, the custom house, that custom house, would that be where either the Hilton or the police station headquarters? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It covered the whole of Shabazz Park, including the Hilton. That's how huge it was. That's how huge it was, Lee.
Yeah.
And as it says, Redbirds, yeah, definitely. And hopefully many more. That he's talking about the title. And Gary says, massive mistake knocking it down. And the cavern came down in 73.
Yeah.
Criminal.
Yeah.
Criminal.
It's hard to believe that once the Beatles broke up in 1970, it was interest in them in Liverpool waned. It's like they weren't the big tourist attraction then. So.
And Mark Simon says, but Frank, if we didn't pull the old Bondies down, we wouldn't have the wonderful delights of Lewis's and Hilton Hotel. You're going to get your head kicked in. I'd give Gibraltar back. Give Gibraltar back to the Spanish. Because he's our friend from Gibraltar. If we didn't knock the old Bondies down, you know, the likes of the custom house. And well, I forgot to mention that people in the council, when the Americans wanted to buy it, it was taken, you know, very carefully, you know, dismantling it. And that's what you've seen before, you know, that particular photograph, where it wasn't being demolished with a big sledgehammer, or they were taking it very carefully. And some of it's in Anfield Cemetery, and it's actually, you know, some of the stone.
Yeah.
In the Anfield Cemetery, and it's all marked. And the Americans got fed up, and they went, we don't want it now. And that's one of the reasons why it came down, because they were selling.
I don't know if it's true, but I remember reading a while back when we first started talking about it that the decision to pull it down wasn't necessarily a Liverpool council or whatever decision. It was a governmental thing. And someone said, nah, there's no budget, we're not giving money.
And Karen says, love the John Kirkin for me. Oh, very sad though, poor man.
Yeah, me too. Me too, Karen. Makes me, fills me up. Yeah.
And Karen says, Lee, they open it during Heritage Week every September. Thank you, Karen. And this fella, David Owens. Great David. Unbelievable. The last judicial executions in the UK took place on August the 13th, 1964. Peter Allen and Gwyn Evans being hanged at separate prisons. Both were convicted of the murder of John West.
Wow. Because
John West, he made some terrible mistakes by putting bad salmon in the tins. And it's upset poor Peter Allen and Gwyn Evans. So they decided to kill him. No, they didn't. I know, I've done the case on here, actually. The Evans and Allen case. I felt sorry for Peter Allen, actually, because it was Gwyn Evans who actually did the murder. at John West. And I think I was up in Preston. But they came from here.
Yeah.
And it was shocking.
Did you feature that a few years ago on your Heroes and Villains
Yeah,
documentary?
yeah, yeah. I've actually got the film, not the film, sorry. I've actually got the file that I used to do, in classrooms, and I've done it on here as well about the Allen and Evans case, the last man. Peter Allen was actually hanged here at Walton.
Yeah.
He was hanged here at Walton. It shows it, doesn't it? The likes of, excuse me, the likes of, capital punishment.
Yeah.
Do you know what, though? See, people say, why can't we hang people who kill policemen or children? You can't do that. You can't characterise. You really can't. And just say, well, you're bad because you killed a policeman. And you're bad, you killed a child. And because you killed someone in a robbery, you're all right. Do you see what I mean? You won't hang.
I know exactly what you mean, but I regard myself as a lifelong pacifist, which I am. But there's sometimes you read about and you see the details of a case and you think, my God, there's no rehabilitation in the world going to make that person better.
No. And do you know what, though, Anthony? When you think about it, you've got the likes of, the way people look at, like, the justice system. And there's no justice system, really, because you get so. It's like that fella, the Manchester bomber, for example.
Yeah.
Now, the only time I'd bring back capital punishment is for terrorism.
Yeah.
I would bring capital punishment, and it'll deter them. But then again, I don't think it would be a deterrent, in all honesty, because these people, these terrorists, they regard themselves as martyrs.
And you don't want to add to that.
No.
Illusionary thing.
No.
Wasn't treason regarded as a of capital punishment?
You'd still be hanged today. It's still law, and also regicide. The killing of a king.
Yeah,
you can be hanged for that. That's still law today.
Well, you know what? The whole treason thing comes to mind. Governments up and down the globe that are across the pond to our wonderful American boys and girlfriends. If what's going on there is not treason.
No.
What the heck?
No. And, I always remember, like, going back to when, during the 19th century, for example, how many people were innocently hanged.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, look, David says Tony Blair removed the death penalty for treason. I didn't know that.
Right, okay.
Well, that must have been sneaky. But if if one of us killed the king, for example, you'd be hanged for it, regicide. That's the only thing.
Thanks, David.
just shows you, doesn't it? You know, the way the law changes.
The way they change when it suits. And then when you say change the law so we can do this, people can live and eat and oh no, we can't do that. You know, it's not our decision to make. You change the law for everything you want. You know.
I know. So next week, sorry about this. That lad's still there. Sorry about this, David. I'm taking you up on them. I'll have to do this next week.
That's brilliant.
I'll have to do it. See the custom house there?
Yeah.
The custom house. That's what I'll be talking about. You know,
So
the custom house. And what's all the... Sorry, go on.
What year was this map produced again?
This map, it was produced in... I've got one there which is not this. And it was produced in 1885. Which is absolutely wonderful, to be honest. Is it the same one? I'm not quite so sure. But this one is around the same time.
Yeah.
Around the same time. And that particular church is St. George's Church. Can you see it?
Yeah.
And St. George's Church, that was built by Thomas Steers, who actually built the top.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Wow. Thanks,
Isn't that
Jim.
unbelievable?
Wow.
Well, that was actually built in 1727.
Wow.
Because what has happened, they knocked the castle down.
Yeah.
They knocked the castle down and they built that. Now, that particular church, as I said, was built by Thomas Steers. Now, Thomas Steers, he was Thomas Steers, and we anglicised his name because he was a Dutchman. And he built the very first wet dock. He built the very, very first wet dock in the entire world. And he also threw his hand at architecture, and he built that. And do you know what else he built?
No.
The Blue Coat Chambers.
Oh, my word.
So much stairs. But anyway, this particular church, 100 years later, you know, they felt it a bit like crumbly. So they brought in John Foster Jr., who we've also mentioned before, and he put up, he strengthened it. He actually strengthened it, you know, from the outside.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful church. So they decided to knock that down in 1896 to put FM Simpson's Queen Victoria up there, the monument. Yeah, he says 1885.
Wow.
So it just shows you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It shows you, you know, like what goes on when you're looking at these particular things. You know, the likes of the church and it's just amazing, this particular map. And as Jason says, yeah, this was 1885, you know, when the map was done. So we'll do more of this map next week.
Yeah.
Loads of it. We'll do loads of it, and we'll go all around it and giving you some history about it. The likes of the church there. But isn't that fantastic?
Oh, look, the river just full of shipping.
And if you see that, you see another building there, which is look at that. Look at that. And if that building that's like a bit spiky in the middle, right in the middle,
Yes.
down by, that's it. Look at that. Look at that. And that's the municipal buildings today.
Wow.
Look at it. And during the war, where you've got that little frontage here, nearer to us, that was
Yeah.
bombed. That was bombed. And it left it like the one on the Dale Street, intact. So could you imagine that today if it wouldn't have been bombed by those Germans?
Yes.
They never only bombed that Chippy, but they also bombed the likes of that.
It's such as we and you keep saying, the inspirations the architects got from Europe and from Rome and from Greece, and we're like a mini Venice, or we would have been.
Yeah. I think Karen says, look forward to next week, Frank. And I'll send you the message tomorrow, Karen. Okay. I'll send you the message tomorrow to let you know how it was. Okay. Tomorrow, at the doctor's. I'll definitely send you the message. But when you look at that, though, just look at it.
Yeah.
It's an incredible map. Just an incredible map.
The detail in it.
But I'll be going into more detail about more, other buildings and such. It'll be great just going around, right around it. And I want to get like the custom house. The custom house, which I want to talk about in depth next week on this map.
Yeah.
AJ, can you just show a quick glimpse of it, please, the custom house? There it is. Look at that.
Wow. Look at that detail, man.
And look at what right next to it on the right. The Sailor's Home.
Oh.
See, I'll be talking about all this next week. But look how beautiful that building is. And it could have been saved. There was a preservationists, and they were actually saying, don't do it. Don't pull it down. It was just like preservationists going back to the castle. They were screaming, don't pull it down. That was the first building ever built in Liverpool. Stop it. Oh, no, yeah, I'll pull it down. So they pulled it down. We could have had a castle.
Yeah.
And I always remember these councillors didn't know we had a castle when I was taking them around. I said, you don't. And we were standing on Victoria's Monument. And I went, see that building there? And they went, yeah. I said, what does it say? And they went, Castle Moat House. I said, yeah. I said, does that give you a clue? Pick. No, what kind of a clue? I said, well, all right, what's that little alley called there? And they looked at it, back Castle Street. I said, what's that street called there? Pointing to Castle. He said, Castle Street. I said, so what does that tell you?
We're back to hold your plums.
Exactly. And honestly, I said, I said, where were Castle? I'm talking to them. And I said, where do you think castles were built? Where do you think Liverpool Castle was built? Because they didn't know we had one. And this, honest to God, this councillor, he was. Do you know what he said? I said, have a guess. Anyone have a guess? And this fellow went there, Duke Street. I said, Duke Street? What made you say Duke Street? And he said, because dukes build castles. And I thought, oh, really? Flogging a dead horse. And I went, and I brought them around, the side of Victoria's monument, and there's a big plaque. I said, yeah, there's the castle here. This is the site of it. Don't laugh, get annoyed. Anyway, and Carol says, look forward to hearing from you. I'll definitely, honestly, Carol, I'll message you tomorrow. I'll message you. And Edward says, what's Friday going to be about? Loads, Edward. Loads.
Yeah.
If you can imagine, like, if you speak English, tell anyone to speak English, it's a hate crime stuff. But there's loads to be talking about.
Don't pick a fight with a country that's 3.5 times bigger than you.
Exactly. So listen, boys and girls, thank you so much for joining myself and Anthony. I hope you have enjoyed it. And I'll see you, well, not all of you, but I'll see some of you tomorrow night for the football show. I'll be back for that. Looking forward to the weekend. And don't forget to watch along as well on the weekend. And if I swear, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But anyway, I'll see you on Friday if you're not interested in the football. See you Saturday morning for the film and TV review. I've got to thank Gap Painting Services for sponsoring the Frank Carlyle show. And those lads are fantastic. If you're an NHS worker and you're an elderly person, you get special discounts. Get them in. The fully timed safe lads, decorators, and the fully insured. Just get them in. Don't struggle. And if you don't fit into the categories of those two I mentioned, they're still reasonable. They really are reasonable. They're brilliant. In and out. And the other got them. And Karen says, fab night, thank you both. Thank you, Karen, for joining us.
Thank you.
And it's just for me to say, ci vediamo, Adamani, ciao bella. Thank you, Anthony. And most important, as well, as Jason Pennington, the producer of the show.
Absolutely.
And when you just see his work, he just does. Absolutely incredible. And the most important people are you out there who are commenting. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks
next week is going to be good. Not only that, but it should be fun. And Mark Simons. Good night from Gibraltar, my Carinos, my friends, my dears, that is, I think, my dears. Thanks, and give it back. We're going to start a campaign on this Frank Carlyle history show. And Anthony started a campaign to give Gibraltar back to the Spanish. Thanks, boys and girls. Thank you so much. The history show will be back next week again with Anthony and myself. And have a fun week. Thank you.
You too.
Ci vediamo. Ciao. Ciao, bello.